the heart rate. It's actually difficult to get the heart to beat at all. So, both of these need emergency medical treatment, whether it's the hypo or the hyperkalemia. In the case of the calcium, with hypercalcemia, the heart rate's usually increased. With hypocalcemia, not enough calcium, usually the heart rate is too high. This is usually rare, but if a person comes in, they'll usually check for both, okay? Because it can be one or the other. Now, the problem with the calcemia affects my strength of the contraction, meaning when that heart beats, the force that will push the blood into the systems. I will not get proper push, proper flow into either the pulmonary or the systemic circuit. Does that make sense? So those are two that you're going to see for sure. So those are my heart rates. So if my cardiac output is dependent on heart rate, those are factors that can affect it. For stroke volume, because my cardiac output is heart rate times my stroke volume. Three things, three variables govern my stroke volume. They are termed preload, contractility, and afterload. Preload. The stretch that's available from my myocardium. Myocardium is the muscle of the heart. When we talked about skeletal muscle, it had the ability to contract and recoil. Does everybody remember that? Because that is what a contraction is. Okay? We contract and we recoil. We have muscle here also. Therefore, it has to have the ability to contract and recoil. In skeletal muscle, do you guys remember talking about how if you warm up the skeletal muscles, like if you're getting ready to go out and take a jog, and you see the people out there going, where they're like warming up the muscles, okay? That means when they got to go do the run or jog or whatever they're going to do, the contraction of the muscle can be greater. Yes, no, maybe. You want that so it doesn't cramp up. So, a couple of things. You were increasing blood flow, getting more nutrients so that they don't. Heart muscle, well, let me think here for a second. The heart doesn't stop. It's beating every minute of every day until it doesn't. Now, what happens is we do increase return. Just mentioned a few minutes ago that when you start a physical activity, your veins have more blood than your arteries. And when you start that physical activity, you're causing the muscles around the veins to push and increase the blood return to the heart. Well, because it's muscle, it can stretch for that return. The goal, once again, I have a length that the cells should move to. Do y'all remember that in skeletal muscle? You didn't want the fibers to go further because then you've overstretched the muscle. If you overstretch the muscle in skeletal muscle, you start hurting and you have to stop the activity you're doing. Do we want the heart to stop? I mean, you know, I kind of like the fact that it's going, but with the heart, it can't simply just stop the activity, recover, and start back up. So you want that stretch to only go as far as it will be allowed. When it does, and the heart beats, the contraction is stronger. So the preload means I have returned more blood to my heart, but it can stretch to meet the demand, but the contraction will be stronger. Okay? So therefore, how hard does that muscle have to contract? Well, based on the preload, like I just said, if more is received, the stronger my contraction. Under normal circumstances, the heart meets that demand. There's a law that governs this, termed the Frank-Starling law. Ventricles will eject as much blood as they receive until they are damaged. Once ventricles get damaged, other problems set in. Ever heard of somebody saying, I have an enlarged heart? Do you happen to know what they meant when they said that? You just kind of pictured the heart being bigger, right? Like on the Grinch. Actually, what it is, their ventricles have stretched, the muscle has stretched too far to meet the demand. So when they contract, it does not contract out the blood that's been put into it.
Is that what ventricular hypertrophy is?
Yes, that is ventricular hypertrophy. So how hard the myocardium has to contract is based on the preload. We say that the factors affecting it can be positive or negative. Now, in the grand scheme of things, there are way too many factors to even begin to address here. Yeah, if you were going to go be a cardiac surgeon or a cardiologist or whatever the case might be, you're going to have to be familiar with those, but I'll guarantee you, they still have a book they go look it up in. You'll go in to see them, give them your symptoms, and they'll say, I'll be right back. And they go look in their book. Just say, okay? I'm fine with that as long as they know what book to go to. All right, as long as they don't go to the wrong book. The most common agents that will affect the contraction of the heart: calcium and potassium. Calcium can actually affect the contraction so great the heart gets paralyzed and stops. I don't think I would like that. Potassium is negative, and we don't even get action potential started, meaning we don't even get the contraction. Both of them, the heart stops. I mean, once again, that's kind of a no-win situation. Afterload. Well, once I receive the blood, and once I get ejection or contraction, afterload, what forces does my ventricles have to overcome to eject that blood? The biggest one is blood pressure. Because blood that has to leave the heart, first of all, from the right side, the pressure has to be strong enough to move into my pulmonary trunk. Did everybody note that in everything that we have talked about, and I have mentioned ejection of the blood, I've always gone and moved into. Which way did my hands go? They go up. What am I working against? Gravity. I have to make sure that the pressure in my right ventricle Are you done? I'll wait till you finish, because that's being picked up on the camera, my voice and everything. So, they have to be able to overcome pressure to get into the pulmonary trunk. From the left, it not only has to overcome gravity to move up, but also go through the arch before it can move with gravity. So the pressure is the greatest force that my blood has to overcome. There are many things that affect this. The biggest that you will encounter are lung diseases, because they are restricting movement either into the pulmonary trunk, through the lungs themselves, or return to the heart. And that will affect the movement of the blood through the rest of the body. So you're going to see stuff like emphysema. Ever known people who might have had that? I'm sure you've seen commercials for it. Smoking causes lung cancer and emphysema, okay, on the commercials, which they don't do commercials anymore for cigarettes. When I was growing up, you heard that all the time. Now, many other things affect the circulation to the lungs. And that is going to cause other problems throughout the body to show up, which come under our next chapter. Our blood vessels